Of all the hotels you have led, is there a particular one that has truly taught you about great experience?
So I kind of define CX in the modern world in three forms, which is functional, emotional, digital. So we do a lot of work on employees. Tell you a few things. We are expanding very quickly, so it's always a challenge when people ask us that question: how do you ensure that every employee delivers the same kind of consistency of service when you're expanding so quickly? There are various aspects which are important for measuring the CX. So I would put that brand as number one in the opposite direction.
Which hotel or hospitality brand globally would you admire the most?
For sure, my favorite brand is always the Taj. Other than that, I think there are some great hotels and some great brands.
Welcome to CX Stars India. CX Stars is about benchmarking India's best companies on customer experience. To deliver a great customer experience, companies need to master four distinct pillars: digital, service, brand, and employee experience. We benchmarked over 400 companies across these pillars and ranked each one of them to come up with a composite State of CX India Index. Today, I'm super delighted to have with me Praveen Chander, EVP Commercial with IHCL Group. And guess what? IHCL Group has been ranked the top company in India for customer experience. For decades, many of us have always heard or talked about the great experience at Taj. It symbolifies in many ways what has come to be known as the exceptional experience or Atithi Devo Bhava in this country. I'm delighted to have Praveen here to talk us through how he has managed to help deliver such an exceptional experience to all of his colleagues in the IHCL group. Welcome, Praveen. Delighted to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here today.
Yeah, thank you, Praveen. You know, we all grew up idealizing this brand, Taj. And so how is it so synonymous with experience? Why is the Taj brand so synonymous with such exceptional experience?
Taj is a legacy brand. We finished 120 plus years, and it is rooted in the culture of service from India. And being a Tata company, we were one of the first hotel opened in 1903. So it carries the Tata values, which are our guiding principles. And Taj has always been synonymous with intuitive, personalized service. And far before any kind of technology could do that, our people have been remembering everything about customers walking through the doors and making sure that their experiences are unique, making sure that we deliver on time, we deliver exceptional service, and we also go beyond the call of duty. So that's the culture of Tajness. So we about a decade back called this culture as Tajness, because that's what most people from outside would call it. And we always say Tajness is service from the heart, which means service from the soul. And that is the core reason for existence of our organization. So these are some of the things which always helped us to deliver. And I think very interestingly, as you said, there are various aspects which are important for measuring the CX. So I would put that as brand as number one in the opposite direction. And I think we are very fortunate to have Taj as one of the leading brands. It's one of the few brands which is not just popular in India, but actually even the world knows India. Hospitality as Taj simplifies that. And then we've been rated as India's strongest and world's strongest brand by Brand Finance across the last 5 years. So we're very happy and very proud to have an Indian brand which kind of moves up and has given that space. Then when it comes to customer service, we spend a lot of time in honing and defining the customer journey. It is be it part of functional, which means making sure that everything is efficient and we do it in the best manner and everything works perfectly fine, to the emotional part of it, which means there's a lot of work which goes into ensure that the emotional experience of the customer is taken care of. And that's where our people are our brand ambassadors. They go out of their way to create experiences. They go out of their way to be intuitive, and we train them a lot to deliver this customer service. And then over time, we are also building the other two layers, which is technology, and I would say memory, loyalty, referrals, which has a lot of work has happened in the last 10 years.
Memories, loyalty, referrals.
Referrals, because that's one part of it. So I kind of define CX in the modern world in three forms, which is functional, emotional, then I would say digital, because digital is pretty critical today. And the fourth part is memory, loyalty, and referral, because that is what you take back much after you've gone and checked out from the hotels, which means we need to be in your memories and we need to kind of keep you coming back and yearning to come back and stay in an IHCL hotel.
So how do you measure memory?
So, it's difficult to measure memory, but what we do is we've been working on building a whole ecosystem around loyalty. So as we speak today, we have close to 16 million people which are as part of our loyalty program.
Wow.
And we run customer lifecycle management for them, which means there's a lot of work goes on making sure that they are active, they are continuously engaged with us. We focus on recency, frequency. We focus on their tiers in terms of how is that working. We also continuously focus on both above the funnel and middle of the funnel in terms of conversion. So those are some of the things where, if you haven't used us for some time, you would find in your inbox a message. Sometime you will find a great offer. And a lot of time it's about, we kind of encourage you to refer us and engage you through social media. So there are multiple things. And I think in the digital world, it's very easy to do that.
So which of these four pillars, brand, digital, employee, service, which is the hardest for you? Or which is the best for you as well?
I think, so if you have to say what are the best for you, so first of all, it's the brand. And Taj being the first hotel company, 5-star hotel company in India, it's very well known. It's synonymous with luxury. It's synonymous with...
How do you build this brand?
With warmth. It's synonymous with Indian style hospitality. And it's been built over a decade, actually over a century, so 120 years. And the brand basically is built by constantly delivering service, which is par excellence, going beyond the call of duty, making sure that the brand is your first recall factor that you would like to go and stay when you choose a hotel. And it's all been done by, I guess, our people who've been doing that for over a century. And further, as we move ahead, we've done a lot of work to polish the brand, and we keep doing various things from time to time, which means that your brand experience is continuously worked on and enhanced. And when you come to a Taj hotel, how do you feel special? What are your moments of truth that you kind of incorporate? What are the hardware and the software that you kind of interact with? So everything goes into building the brand.
And then let's talk about, for me, what has always fascinated me with the Taj group or the IHCL group is actually the employee experience. The employees talk about it so much more passionately than many other companies that have ever come
So
across.
I think employee experience or employees are the most important part of the brand and most important part of the CX. Because what really defines the brand or the CX in an organization is the culture. And culture is what really the employees, what the values that they live day in, day out, the kind of belief systems that they carry, the way we take care of them and how do they deliver. So we do a lot of work on employees. To tell you a few things, we are expanding very quickly. So it's always a challenge, and people ask us that question, how do you ensure that every employee delivers the same kind of consistency of service when you're expanding so quickly? So, so first thing is that we make sure that every internal promotion is given to the first option is for an internal employee. We'll only go out to get somebody if we don't find the position inside. We spend a lot of time on skilling. So as we speak, we have a goal of skilling 100,000 people by 2030. We took this goal about 2 years back, and we are pretty ahead of time. We have 50 skilling centers all across India, from Baramulla to Kerala, from Rajasthan to Kolkata. So north, east, south, west. And in these skilling centers, we train people to short skilling centers to come and work in hotels. And even if they don't want to work for us, we would still teach them and train them, and they can go and work for the competition. There's no problem. In addition to that, we have over 12 tie-ups with various institutes across the world and in India, like ESSEC, SDA Bocconi, where we are kind of getting people to upskill at the time when they're working with us. So at any given time, you have about 15 to 20 leaders who are being trained in these places. Then we also believe in internal mobility, which helps you to spread the culture. So I have a belief that culture of an organization is like the culture of a yogurt, which means that when you put 1 spoon in 2 liters of milk, in the morning you find the whole milk has become yogurt. So we follow a very similar system where we have some best influencers or great employees who are given choice to go and open new hotels for us. And they carry with them the standards and the culture and the beliefs of the hotels. And that helps us to build the same culture in those organizations. It's a very, very interesting way of doing things. And of course, at the back end, we have our standards and quality standards and audits and stuff like that, which helps you to kind of put that. Then in the employee space, there is also a lot of work done on employer branding. Our full form of Taj is trust, awareness, joy. So we try to create a lot of employee experiences and try to keep them healthy, focus on wellness. We have lots of platforms where they can go and exchange their ideas. We spend a lot of time on training, because training is very critical for making sure that the employees are kept updated with what's going on. So that happens. In addition to that, there is also, we like to celebrate the achievements at various forums. So there are at least 3 or 4 forums in a year where we celebrate some of our best employees, including an employee recognition program called the STARS, which is also over a decade old now. So all this kind of comes together to form the guardrails and enablers for the culture.
How do you, let's go to the next pillar, which is service. So how do you get these moments of magic? How do you empower the teams to create this? Can you give us an example, about, let's say, a customer journey? Or how are you, through these teams? Because you mentioned a few words in the beginning. I think you said, we allow employees to create experiences. It's not something that we hear. Most people have people to give a service. You said we allow them to create an experience.
Yeah. So very interesting. So there are 2 kinds of service experiences that are defined in any organization. One are non-negotiable standards, right? So, for example, when you check into the hotel, your bags have to reach your room in 5 minutes from the time it's done. You should be met in 2 minutes. When you place a room service order, a tea, coffee should come in less than 10 minutes and so on. So those are like non-negotiated. We call them brand standards. So we have a brand custodian who kind of keeps revisiting this in every brand. And then we also do things called as brand standard quality audits for all the brands to ensure that all these brand standards are standardized. Yeah. So that's what I call the functional aspect of CX, as we started talking about it. The second part is the emotive aspect. So what we did was about a decade plus back, we decided to let's kind of build a framework for intuitive service. Now that's very, very contradictory, right? Framework for intuitive, because intuitive has to come from within. So what we did was we defined, we first went across various aspects of customer journey, and then we earmarked opportunities of where a customer might have a tacit need, but he doesn't talk about it. Now that could be based on a banana peel that he throws in his dustbin after eating banana from the fruit basket, to somebody who's a smoker and having a ashtray or a lighter on next to his table, to somebody who's carrying a piece of gourd along with him and likes to put it right next to his bed because he wants to kind of do the puja in the morning, to also trying to figure out what kind of toiletries you carry with you and what kind of toiletries you might be running out of. So that was an exhaustive list of 250 touch points. And we called them the magical moments. Then we went back and trained our team to look for these opportunities of magical moments and empowered them to go ahead and, create those magical moments for customer, including there was a certain amount of empowerment fund which was created, saying that if you need to spend an X amount of money for the customer, you're most welcome to do that. A lot of time we still found it was difficult, because when you have a hotel which is in remote reaches, where would you find things like that? So then we also kind of stocked a lot of such items in the hotel. And we were the first company to do that. Today, it's very common in Indian hospitality, and I can proudly say that a lot of other people copied us because this was a best practice. And then what happens is it doesn't end there. So it starts from here. And on a daily basis, if you have 100 guests staying in the hotel, housekeeper or front desk will kind of measure how many magical moments did you create for. So your employees are encouraged to come back and say, I did these 3 things, I did these 2 things. And
every day?
Every day with various rooms. And then you write the name of the employee on a piece of chit and you leave it in the room, which is very nice and intuitive. And then once customers recognize that and they write to us saying that they saw this in their room, we build the full circle, which means we celebrate that with the employee every week. We call them and we kind of facilitate them, saying that great job done in a room where we call it celebrating excellence. Just a cup of tea with the general manager, and the others get inspired because they want to do the same, and they get star points, and then people could keep going on the tiers of star points. They go to the MD's club where they all come together and it's celebrated. So it's a full circle. So first is building the framework, second is encouraging them, third is celebrating, and the last part is making sure that you use that to inspire the team.
And STAR is purely about celebrating service excellence?
STAR is mainly about service excellence. So I would say 90% service excellence. We also have 10-20%, which is about if you have some great innovative ideas which would have got implemented in the hotels, that also forms part of STAR.
Now, you mentioned you have such a cross section of brands, Taj, Ginger, etc. And how do you give that? Because we come to expect a certain level of experience from your best brands, and then you have maybe a more cost-effective brand. Then how do you balance that expectation that a consumer has? Is it difficult to do? And what is the one consistent thing that I will see across all your brands?
So 2 or 3 things. One is that service from the heart and making sure that you go beyond what is expected is a kind of a common theme everywhere. Which means in a Ginger hotel, probably your hardware and everything else is more, I would say, mid-scale.
Yeah.
So, and the number of employees ratio is lesser. So it might not allow the employees to kind of engage with you for that long. But one is efficiency of service always has to be the best. Second is that you always have to have the warmth or the care and attentiveness and emotional connect. So that you will find across board. I think that is what defines IHCL or Taj, that our employees connect with you a little more differently and go beyond, almost like as if you come to their homes. I think that's the key defining factor. And we keep that common among all brands. And then the third part is going to be that every brand has a certain brand standards which you would expect. So customers understand that, and they're pretty kind of know what is the fungibility between the brands and work on that.
Is serving the younger generation a challenge now?
Well, actually, it's not a challenge, but it's very interesting. So firstly, I love Gen Z, right? And I have Gen Z at home. I work with Gen Zs. And I say this generation is very intuitive and very hardworking, firstly. So if anybody tells you that they don't work or, it's just that they're not pretentious. They want to be in their own skin. So for them, probably the definition of what we have about formality of service does not exist. It's more emotional service. It's more to do with having the right kind of place where they feel comfortable. They bring their skin to the organization. So that's one. Second thing is they are digital natives. So for them, you got to build in a very good digital experience, which is the DX needs to be state of the art. Second thing is that in digital space, they believe in published travel. So from the time they enter the hotel to the time they end, they would click probably 30 photographs, and they are already publishing the food that they're consuming, to the swimming pool that they're going to and they're always finding Instagrammable corners, because this is a conversational generation, which means they are either directly or indirectly conversing with people very, very quickly. So you got to build that. And the third thing I keep telling my people is that storytelling is very important to them, because since they are a published travel generation, if you don't have a story, they lose interest. So you can't only offer a cookie cutter kind of experience. So you need to build the stories, you need to tell the stories because they like to consume stories. In terms of, I would say, service levels and other things, they're far more well-traveled. They understand cuisine, they understand culture, they understand what stands for a particular hotel's history far more than we do. So you always have to be upfront with that. I think these are some of the things which help a hotel to build experiences for CX generation.
So is digital your weakest pillar, you think?
Not really. It is not our weakest pillar, but it is a pillar which we added in much later in the journey. So we're still building it. And when I say digital, so we've got a state-of-the-art websites. Our contribution of the website is pretty high compared to Indian counterparts because we do a lot of work on making sure that we are able to find the traffic and move people to the digital experiences. We are going to very soon launch our app, which is going to be state-of-the-art. We've just upgraded our CRM platform. We have one of the largest loyalty program in the Indian ecosystem of any hotel companies. So now all these pieces are coming together to build the CX digital engine of the future. You'll be shocked to know that we get about 20 to 25% of our business comes from digital campaigns, which means there's a lot of interaction that happens, and we have a very large ecosystem of emotive IPs that we used for generating business from I would say generating customer experiences like Dekho Apna Desh, which is around different parts of India and what you would like to see, to Festivals of India, Stays by Taj. We have something called as spiritual abodes. We have something called as, which is basically for only telling you how you go and stay in places where there are religious destinations. We have Voyage, which is meant for mainly women travelers. We have Taj Holidays, which is the largest holiday IP in India and the most popular. So there are a lot of stuff that we keep doing because India is also about emotion and being Taj. I think we run that space completely.
So is there a separate innovation engine which creates these programs like Taj Holidays or festivals, etc.? How do you keep current and relevant in bringing and driving these experiences, products?
So two parts of it. So there's no separate team. It's the current team which works on it. But what we do is we do a lot of research on what are the emerging trends in India. And we also use our own data to do that. So, for example, we recently did a survey where we tried to find out that what are the key aspirations of a upper middle class domestic leisure traveler between the age group of 35 and 45. And we did that across our hotels. So you get the data from social media, you triangulate that with the data that they are leaving, comments that they're leaving for you. You also do behavior and transactional data. So it's easy with AI now. So we triangulated everything. We also tried to find out what's really are the needs which they are expressing on other brands, because we have lots of Tata brands. And then we came up with the top 4 or 5 things that we should do. And you'll be very surprised to know. So I think 2 or 3 things which came out were quite interesting. One was storytelling and differentiation, because they all want in leisure travel differentiation and storytelling. Cuisine was a big one because they all want to do local cuisine and try that. And number 3 was, they're all very keen to travel to destinations which are scenic and so on. So then based on that, we went back and deployed some of these things into some of our brands. So for example, our youngest brand that's launched 19 months back, Gateway, is being launched in a manner that it has different logos and different archetypes for different kinds of hotels. So it could be a heritage city, it could be in a place which is closer to the sea, which is coastal resorts, green resorts, city urban hotels. So we kind of pull that back, and also we use this data for finding the right customers at the top of the funnel.
So you already have a very good, strong existing growth business. What prompts you, or how do you keep innovating on these periphery with these new ideas? Is it, because there is enough growth in the existing business, but there is still also this appetite for constantly innovating. So how do you balance it, or is there a mechanism to drive and support that?
So there is a lot that's happening in the organization. We are growing at we are the fastest growing Indian hospitality company. Actually, fastest growing hospitality company in India. So as we speak, we have 630 hotels in the pipeline and 385 in currently which are open. And we've also expanded our brandscape very quickly. So we recently added 3 new brands to our portfolio. One is Bridge, which is, I would say, luxury boutique experiences. One is Tree of Life, which is into upscale boutique, small luxury resorts. Then we also added Claridge's, which is a upmarket brand. Then we also took Atmanthan, which is a wellness brand. So there's a lot happening from there. And what's happening with India now is India is also the needs of the Indian consumer are more explicit, so easier for you to define archetypes. And as you can define archetypes, there is more space for brands which are differentiated and have a personality around it, because it's easier for us to find the followers of those brands and also open the hotels. So I think we implement some of these ideas into these brands. Like for example, Tree of Life, the tagline is lose yourself to find yourself, and it's all about in really places which are unique and have very experiential nature, so on. In the same way, we're implementing a lot of experiences around wellness into various other hotels that we have. We have J Wellness, which is a very, very big brand of spa. So we kind of are enhancing those. And holiday, India, so today, 80% of our business across is Indian travelers. So that helps us to kind of look at what are they looking for and what is going to be. There are hotels which will keep going back to, people keep coming back to that hotel every year or every 6 months because it's almost like a pilgrimage. And then there are people who would not repeat the hotel for 5 years. So it's important for you to then, give them experiences right from mountain resorts to religious resorts to, going down to beach and so on. And then we also kind of put that into various areas.
So Praveen, one of the things is people want to learn how to build this kind of experiences in their banks, in their telecom companies, in their airlines, in their e-commerce. Let's say you were to, become the head of experiences for a bank. What are some of the things that you would, take from your current business and apply it,
Interesting.
What would be a couple of dimensions you see, you were speaking with the bank, you see, hey, they could have done this better, or any avenue that you see.
So first comment that I would say about customer service is, customer service needs to be done by putting yourself in the customer's shoes. Most organizations go wrong because they build the customer journey based on their capability. It could be digital capability or it could be their aspiration, and they probably don't give enough weightage to the customer. So I think that's one thing which in any industry is very important.
You feel that outside of hospitality, we don't prioritize it enough.
We don't prioritize enough. And then the second issue is that I need to find out. So let's say, to answer your question about the bank. So today, firstly, not too many people go to the bank. But what's really important in a bank is 80% of work gets done digitally. And I've been banking with a very famous bank. I won't take the name, one of the oldest bank in India for the longest time. And I was having a chat with the number 2 operations of that bank, and I told them that you have every piece of information from me. When my salary comes, what credit card, what I use, everything that, but you don't treat me as one person. You treat me for every product as a different person. So for my credit card, you will deal me the way I am. If I need money for my son's education loan, I have to go through a different window and I'm treated differently. If I need a housing loan, which I had all this from the same bank, I'm treated differently. And then if I need to do my usual work, it's done differently. And then what happens is that, so they never treat you as the individual customer, they treat you as functions. So I think coming back to some of the examples that I would pick up is, I would make sure that the customer journey is defined based on what the customer wants. And of course, there are different archetypes. So it could be you divide them into 5 or 6 archetypes to kind of put that together. But once you do that, then you build around it. And the same bank today has built one of the most interesting customer journeys on the WhatsApp. So their bot is like, I would say, pretty good. I would rate it at in the early 70s, right? But it's still good because it's a traditional bank. So you need to put that in. And then comes, if you have to learn something from the hospitality, learn to be flexible, learn to not throw the rule book at the people, and learn to listen first. Like banks will listen. The first thing they want to throw you is a rule book. And I understand you got to keep track of everything. And so most of the time, the challenge that you face is when you're trying to explain your problem, they don't understand. They don't understand that you need to file, let's say, advanced tax on the next day. So if you have everything that you're doing in one go, why can't it all come in my box as one? Why can't you take permission from me and use a single customer source ID across everything? But today you still have to, with the same bank, I have to go to 6 places to collect everything from my DMAT to what's going to happen with my saving account to everything. So I don't think that's a good idea. And if any bank could do that, I will change or take all my business to them in one go. And putting one person who will probably solve your problem never helps, because that person is either not available or when shit hits the ceiling, disappears.
Great. Another example, another thing that you would do, because you do so many things across so many dimensions, right? You do it across employees, how you hire the employees, from the way you have done journeys to the way you empower teams to take discretionary decisions. How do you empower them? How do you trust them that they will do this? Is there a ceiling on how much they can do? And also, besides the ceiling, how does that sense of trust and empowerment, how does it work?
Actually, empowerment is not very difficult. So empowerment comes with three steps. One is you need to define the level of empowerment, which means as a hotel company, you can define it based on a certain amount of money that they can spend, a certain amount of money till which they can give complimentary services.
Yeah.
You can define it based on number of things that they can do. So which is easy. You just put it as a rule book and that's it. Then comes the intuitive loose part of it, which means you also build for them to take decisions which could be loosely in the framework, but gives them that freedom to do it. So, for example, if I need to, buy you're staying in the hotel and then you ordered for some basic medicines and then I get it for you. And then if it's a luxury hotel, your billing is high, I probably might not charge it or I might charge it. So those small things, or, I could give you a city run car complimentary if you're just going close by. So some of those things you kind of inbuilt into the system. And probably giving a dessert at the end of the day, or if it's a birthday on the table, you give a cake, which is your empowerment. So those kind of things that you do it. And then the last part is sometimes you also need to have a bit of governance around it, which should not be on the face governance, but that can be done through making sure that everything is accounted for on a no charge KOT, or making sure that people still account for it, what you've given as an empowerment. So I think these 2-3 things, and we've been champions in doing that. And our team has always done a very good job with empowerment. We've never had an issue with anybody using it incorrectly.
Anything else, Praveen, that we should talk about? Any unique facets that you believe the practitioners? Okay, maybe we come to this. Let's pick up this. How is the leadership? Let's say the CEO. How obsessed is he with customer experience? Or is that just because it's hospitality, we are anyway obsessed? Is that a difference why we don't see such obsession amongst the other sectors?
Yeah, very good question. So customer experience or customer service has to arrive from obsession. Obsession of the brand or obsession of the senior leadership team. And that obsession must flow through into making sure that you see it. So like every day in the morning, through rituals or through the kind of way we deal with these things, that's very important. So I think for us, customer service is non-negotiable. And more than that, when things go wrong, which they will, because for an average person who walks through the door of a hotel, he has about 1,000 moments of truth a day. There will be things which will go wrong. And then comes is how do you make sure that you make up for it, which means the speed, the ownership, the agility, and the empathy to solve those issues. And I think those are some of the key things. And we as an organization have spent a lot of time in stitching various aspects of voice of customer being funneled into the right place and use that to learn. So what we do is we get a lot of direct and indirect feedback. The direct feedback is when you're staying in the hotel. Indirect feedback comes from all kinds of social media channels. So we scrape the net and we use that, which kind of flows through. And then all this data is used to do stratification of customer needs and complaints. So we get complaints. It's not that we don't get complaints. And then on those complaints, then we figure out what's really going wrong in a hotel. And it could be a cyclical complaint. So then you form a small CFT and then you bring improvements to it. And we're pretty obsessed with making sure that right from the CEO. So the moment he gets any and a lot of people in India, everybody writes to the CEO or they write to the senior management. So the moment you have something like that, he's very swift, almost I would say very, very quick response time. In 5 or 7 minutes, you will kind of get that escalated to the right set of people. And internally, we have an internal benchmark of a turnaround time for less than 2 to 3 hours that we'll not just reach the customer, we'll also close it. Unless if it's something requires far more engagement. But even if it requires more engagement, we'll do that. So I think that's very important. When we were early in our career, we would teach people that make sure that no customer leaves with unresolved complaints, because there would be issues that will happen, but make sure that we don't kind of leave it open-ended. So I think that obsessiveness to ensure that it's sorted out makes all the difference. And we also have a very interesting channel called care@Tajness, where everything in the organization at level 2 escalation goes there. So it's a 24-hour center with only 3 people who are the most intuitive people in the company who understand how to deal with those issues. And they would make sure that these issues are being closed at a fast pace and kind of work on it.
Can you explain this a bit more? And if, let's say, a bank or a telco would replicate it, how would they go about it?
So, see, I would always say, if you ever have, firstly, all customer escalations need to be funneled up at a common source, which has a view of the CEO or the senior leadership team. So that's very critical, because a lot of time what happens is that when the customer complaints come in, they are not dealt with the right level of escalations, or closure does not happen. So what we do, we set up this thing about 5 years back, where we said every escalation point should finally end at one nodal point, which will be called as care@Tajness, which means if things have not been resolved from any source, it will all come here. And then we have a very specialist team of people who would look into that and ensure that they will answer on behalf of the organization or will follow through. And it's a physical and a digital, like it's a phygital channel. All the digital channels kind of converge there, and it's very effective.
And just 3 people taking
just
care
3
of
people,
all.
yeah, because those 3 people are the most intuitive, but because it's the last level of escalation, right? So we've got call centers and everything else for every product, but these 3 people basically are the ones where everything converges. Yeah.
Any other nuggets like this which you believe can be applied to an industry or a sector?
Well, I would say 2 or 3 things, as I said. First, put yourself in the shoes of the customer, and I always have a favorite phrase that don't let your capabilities define your delivery. Let your delivery define what capabilities need to be built. So a lot of people, what they do is they'll figure out what their budgets or their digital infrastructure is, and then they will say, this is my delivery line. So it doesn't work, because then there is like a friction at that point. Second thing is that you need to be close to your customers and own your customers. I think that's becoming very important today, because all of us are so digitally native and are so connected that we shift channels very quickly. And the affinity, or I would say oxytocin, needs effort to create. If I don't have oxytocin with the product or with the company that I'm dealing with, I move on very quickly. And I think it's time for building digital oxytocin at certain places. It's a difficult one, but how do you kind of continue being in touch? And the third is you need to treat everybody as individual, which means everything requires a bit of personalization, bit of hyper personalization, because I want to be treated the way I am. And how do you build that into your business is critical.
You alluded to this thing, you talked about rituals. And I find that the hospitality industry is a master at rituals, right? Why is it that, what are some of these rituals that could be applied elsewhere, right? You have a ritual when you start the day, you have a ritual of feedback, you have a ritual of celebration, you have so many rituals. And it seems like it is easy to do in your industry. Is that a fair statement, or how should we embrace the power of rituals?
So, since we are still a brick and mortar industry, right? At the end of the day, we are in the business of selling tea, coffee, food, and making beds for people. So because we have physical nature and we have physical guests, it's easy for us to. We always, everything is about rituals, and that's what ties up the. And I find that rituals are the base of any culture. How do you make sure that you are able to, when somebody walks into your hotel as a new employee, how do you ensure that he quickly get acclimatized to, just like that culture of yogurt, he becomes ready, is the rituals. So most organizations should have such rituals, and they are basically meant more to combine the employees, ensure that the employees have a purpose. I think very important, even more important than rituals, is common purpose of the organization, well defined. And does every employee carry that common purpose when he reaches his hotel or any other organization? So how do you kind of build that in? In digital organizations, it's difficult, because in digital organization, firstly, you don't see who does what. Most of it is done by people who are not really working for a single organization. But over there, the rituals need to be seen digitally. So that there's a whole science to DX, which is very different. And I would say that a digital ritual would evolve more from how the platform behaves with me. And I'll give you some examples. So some of the quick commerce guys have evolved themselves into skins that are kind of intermingled into your life. So on 2 days before Diwali, you will find everything of Diwali there. 2 days before Holi, you will find they're selling everything that's required for Holi. And in fact, for the last couple of festivals, at my home, we've been celebrating even the festivals that we didn't celebrate for 15 years because product is available, right? So one day I go home and then, we're kind of burning this little wood, and which I'm a Punjabi from Punjab. So what is supposed to be done during Baisakhi is being done at home. And I was like very surprised that last time I remember that was 25 years back when my grandfather was alive. That's because today Zomato or Zepto actually sells it to you. So rituals in digital business is far more difficult and completely different genre of work. Yeah. So for example, if you are in a e-commerce platform which is selling things to customers, the ritual that needs to happen is how intuitive and personalized or occasion driven you are. So I'll give you an example. So one of these quick commerce platform that we use very often has started kind of selling you things, depending upon various kinds of customary festivals and so on. So a couple of days back, I reached home and we had a festival of Baisakhi, and I realized that my family had set up the entire ritual like we used to do 25 years back, and I was like pretty surprised about it. That how did this happen? And then my wife told me that it's available on Zepto or either ways on one of those companies, which basically helps you to kind of be in the moment and feel it the way it is. So coming back to the rituals for digital companies, they need to be very intuitive and personalized. And a lot of time it's also going to be about your personal rituals, which means based on your buying history, how are they changing the channels? What are they really showing you? Are they making you from a emotional cognitive manner, is the friction lesser? And most of it is based on, I would say, metacognition, which means are the platforms driving your behavior? Now, not too many people question this, but you will find that if you are shifting channels, you're definitely going to a channel which is more intuitively hacking your brain chemistry and creating more oxytocin or dopamine to be able to kind of make you feel that this is where you belong. So I think that's a very different scale altogether. And then of course comes with how the stuff arrives at home and how is it packaged and what's printed and so on, which I think most people do a good job. Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Praveen, let's do a quick rapid fire and, love to hear your thoughts.
Let's get ready.
A quick rapid fire with Praveen Chander. So Praveen, which hotel or hospitality brand globally, let's say other than the IHCL group, would you admire the most?
Oh, that's a difficult one. For sure, my favorite brand is always the Taj. That's where I've grown. And other than that, I think there are some great hotels and some great brands. Like I'm pretty fond of Mandarin Oriental. Yeah. The way they kind of do their rituals, and even I would say Shangri-La. I'm not. I really don't find differentiation in large organizations, but there are also some smaller hotels which are unique, like George the Cinq in Paris, and which are continuously creating experiences, the Cipriani in Venice and so on. Yeah.
One book every hospitality or CX leader should read.
The Power of Moments.
If you could change one thing about Indian hospitality, how the Indian hospitality thinks about customer experience, what would it be?
I think Indian hospitality is very good. I would not like to change anything over there. It's just that as the time is going by, the Indian consumer is becoming very intuitive and demanding. So we need to keep up with pace with that. So that's the only thing. I don't think to change anything, but solve more for the diverse Indian consumer, because we are also almost over 30 states with different kinds of food habits and so on. So we need to keep sharpening that skill.
Of all the hotels you have led, is there a particular one that has truly taught you about great experience?
I think always Taj Lake Palace, my first hotel as a GM, and it's a 280 years old hotel. I recently visited that hotel last week, and every time I go there, my heartbeat slows down by 10 base points because it's so intuitive and so surreal. But I think what it really teaches you is how to create luxury, and we call ourselves custodians of true luxury. So it's a living legend, and we call it, one of the key properties for the Taj.
If you look ahead in, let's say, 2030, what would be different in a Taj experience?
I think Taj experience will continue to be the way it is, but it will be supported by a lot of digital. So, I keep saying hotels can't be run on digital. Hotels are always going to be phygital, which means the digital will power the insights and bring it in your hands so that you can deliver it faster. And with larger number of customers kind of connected to your ecosystem, we need to use technology to make your life easy as an employee. So we see more digital playing more role to empower the people in the front.
Any advice for a young professional wanting to build a career in hospitality or customer experience leadership?
My advice always is hospitality is or even anything to do with customer front-facing jobs. It requires a lot of affinity to understand what customers want. So study the customers, and it requires you to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Again, you can't deal with a customer from outside in perspective. You have to deal it from inside out. A lot of empathy.
Can you train yourself in it?
Yes, you can. You can. You just have to be more empathetic. You have to have very high degree of hone the skills of noticing everything that's going around you. You find all answers without even asking the questions. Create anticipative service. And as we always say in hospitality, it's all about treating customers like God.
Is there a particular interaction over the years on the floor that you can never forget?
Well, there have been probably thousands of them, but most of them have been conversations where I was able to create a wow experience for the customers where they never expected, but nothing in specific. I can write a memoir on that. Yeah.
So can you train for empathy?
Yes, you can train for empathy, though it's an inherent skill which comes from upbringing. But you can train for empathy by having empathy as a ritual or a culture. So there are organizations when you walk in where everybody's so empathetic, and like in a hospital, right? So how do you do that? So it's part of the ritual or the culture. So empathy has to be embedded in the culture. And then empathy has to be kind of made part of the overall
Excellent.
aspect.
Praveen, it has been an absolute delight talking to you. It has, I've got a 1 year's worth of MBA education in this
Thank you.
hour of conversation. Firstly, congratulations to you. You and the entire team at IHCL deserve a huge round of applause for the amazing work you're doing to push the boundaries of what great experiences, right? And to keep the India brand shining as far as experience is concerned. So thank you for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
come, share, and help us advance the cause of building great CX in India.
Thank you. I think it's all vision of our CEO and MD, Mr. Puneet Chadwal, and I would say also our 60,000 employees which work day in and day out to create that moment. I mean, we are nothing without those employees, and it's all because of the team. Thank
Excellent. Thank you, Praveen.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Awesome.